It's dark. It's cold. You don't know where you are. Your body hurts. You're tired. You can feel whatever you were using earlier tonight just starting to wear off. And now you can hear a police officer calling your name, telling you to stop where you are. Hello, and welcome back to the Shakedowns 101 series on crime and punishment. Today, we're going to talk about what you're going to do starting from right here. If you have just had the worst night of your life, and what you need to do to help keep yourself out of prison and make the best decisions, whether you know exactly what you did, you don't know exactly what you did, whether you're completely innocent, whether you're completely guilty, and make the best decisions to protect yourself throughout this process, and also give you an idea of what the process is that you're about to deal with in the next coming months and coming years as you now prepare to go to prison. So in the last episode, we talked about crime. We talked about the different types of crimes. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what happens if the police arrest you and accuse you of committing one of those crimes. And then what the steps will happen after that when the state presses charges, all the way up to you being sent off to jail. And then what you can do to help make sure that you have the best defense possible to help either prevent that from happening or get the smallest sentence possible given your situation. And also, let's tell the truth here, based on the money in your bank account. So you're out in the middle of nowhere. You don't know what's going on. You don't remember what happened. You're a little fuzzy, or you do totally remember what happened. You remember all the details of the event this night, and it's all bad decisions. If the police are coming after you, this is the worst night of your life. Even if it's the first time you've been arrested or the 30th time you've been arrested, this is the worst night of your life. And it wasn't just one bad decision that led you here. There were several that led up to this point. And throughout this whole process, you're going to be reliving every single one of those bad decisions. I'm not going to get too much into that and what that might look like for you, because honestly, it's going to be different for every single person. So what I want to focus on is just kind of what you can do to help shield yourself from the legal process. Because honestly, whether you're innocent or whether you were like me, you were guilty, but you just don't want to spend the rest of your life in prison, or you're somewhere in between and you just don't know how this system works. The system is very unfairly balanced for people who know how the system works towards against people who don't know how it works. The goal of today's episode is to give you a little bit of an edge in case, and hopefully this never happens, you or someone you care about has to run in with the legal system, which unfortunately, for most everyone listening, there's a good chance you're going to be in that scenario sooner or later. So it's dark, there are sirens, and someone is telling you to stop right there. There's going to be guns pointed at you, and they're going to try one way or another to get you into handcuffs. Best deal is make it as clear as possible that you're not going to do anything. When, as we all know, that's not a surefire bet that you're going to be safe, but that's probably going to be your best option. Once they've got you in handcuffs, that's when the questioning is going to start. They're going to start asking you everything. What happened? Who are you? What's going on? And you can tell them the basics, your name, your birthday, your mom's maiden name, if you want. Just basic facts you can get from your, about you. But they'll Ask at the station when they're just entering basic information about you. They could find it in a government database anyway. All that information is fine. What you don't tell them about is anything that happened that night, even if you remember it, even if it's perfectly vivid, even if you think it's harmless, even if you think it exonerates you. Don't talk to them. And I say this because no matter what a police officer says, they can't help you. The only thing they could do is potentially let you go. But even then, they can always come back, rearrest you, and put you through this all again. But the thing is, the goal of the police officers is to find a person, arrest them, and then basically hand them over to the district attorney to prosecute for this crime. That's all their job really is. They don't get a bonus for finding the right person every time. They don't get a bonus for, like, they don't get a whole bunch of grief if they get the wrong person every time. And really, we don't know how often they get it right versus they get it wrong. They can't like give you good time or like reduce your sentence if you're such a nice guy to them. They can't do anything like that. And they can't be helpful in that way. If you go through and you tell them like, look, I really didn't mean it. I'm so sorry. Let me tell you how sorry I am and that I didn't mean it and how truly, truly, I really didn't mean to do whatever I did. That's great. They will give you a cell just like everyone else. Well, not yet, because you're just going to go into holding first, but we'll get there. The more information you give them, the more that they can use against you. So, as it says in the Miranda rights, which I don't think police officers have to tell you right away, they can withhold that for a minute. Miranda rights say that anything that you tell the police, they can and will use against you. Really, it's anything you tell the police, they will use against you. It is evidence. Just like everything you have on your person is evidence. Everything. That's what you are at that point. When you're found at a crime scene and they're still looking for the person who committed it, that's evidence. That's all it is. Evidence. Don't take it personal. Don't take it as anything like against you. Like you're not going to win any awards for being the best rule follower. Believe me, I like to win those awards too, but it's not going to happen. Not with the police. All you can do is put yourself into more trouble. And believe me, you could say something. Like I said, you might think that whatever you're going to say, whatever alibi you have, might be the thing that exonerates you. But I'm going to tell you, you give them an inch, they will pull a mile from you. And it might have just one thing, one inconsistency. And then whatever defense you use down the road, and now that thing you thought exonerated you is now going to be the thing that gives you a 20-year sentence. So maybe don't talk to the police, is all I'm saying. And actually, don't talk to anyone. That is rule number one. Don't talk to anyone. So they're going to put you in the back of the police car. They might send you to, if you're injured, you may catch an ambulance to a hospital where, in my experience, the nursing staff is, they'll do their job, but not happily. Then you'll end up going to a jail. Now, you'll either go to a city jail or a county jail, usually, depending on the offense. Maybe if it's a federal charge, you might go to a federal jail right off the bat, but I think it's going to normally be like a city or a county jail. They might do like a sobriety test. They might do some other things depending on what's going on. But right now you're waiting for booking and you're also waiting for arraignment. That's when they will take the, classic mugshot, and then they will also do fingerprints, go put up your, put in your info. But all of this is a super slow process. This is going to take hours. You're going to get your fingerprints. And then the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to get arraigned. The arraignment is going to set the amount of your bond. I'll explain what the bond is in a minute. We've talked about it on this show before, but let's hold off on that. What the arraignment is you're going to go in front of a judge. The judge is going to listen to the charges, or going to look at the charges, may talk to you, may not. Say the bond is set at, and then that's it. Just tell you whatever the bond is set at, and that's the number. That will be 10% of that bond will be what you need to pay to make bond. And if you do not return to court, then the entirety of that bond will be on whoever bonded you out. So that's what the bond is. So you really want to go to arraignment because you can't get your bond, and which means you can't leave the jail until that arraignment happens. And here's the real bad news. Most crimes happen on the weekend. There's a good chance you may be get arrested on a Friday night. If you get arrested on a Friday night, you're not seeing a judge till Monday morning at the earliest. So you're going to be sitting in that jail all weekend. Sorry. No funsies. But once you've been arraigned, the question then is, all right, how do I get someone to pay this bond? Because you're not going to have the thousands of dollars it's going to cost to pay your bond. If it's a misdemeanor charge it's a misdemeanor charge or maybe a small felony, you might get off on like a few $100s. But in general, it's going to be thousands of dollars and you're not going to have that on you. But even if you did, you can't pay it because you are not bonded by the state. I assume has to do with trustworthiness. In case you jump on your bond, they know you're good for the money. That's where your one phone call comes in. Now that you're sitting in jail, now that you've got your bond set, now it's time for you to get that one phone call in. There are a lot of people I would recommend calling in this situation who I don't recommend calling. And I know we had a whole episode on this. We talked about how valuable these people are. And I still think they're valuable. And if in a pinch you don't have any of the other people I'm about to recommend, they're great. But the last people I recommend you to call are the list of bonds people that are going to be posted right next to the phone as you're sitting in that jail. The reason I say that is because bonds people are expensive. They are a racket. There's a reason why there's a huge list of bonds people by that phone because they make money. You think credit card interest is bad? Oh, you're paying way more interest on that bond than you are anything else. If you get a bond, you better pay that back right up front, though you're still probably going to have to pay back interest. So they know they have you right over a barrel, and that's it. The fact that they exist, the fact that these bond companies exist is great. There are some that are better than others. But like I said, they try and work the system by using names like, AAA bonds. So they appear right at the top of the list. And you can't just they're not going to have Yelp reviews next to them so that you can determine which one is a good bondsman or not. You're just going to have to point and guess if you're going to call one of those bondsmen and hope, one, that they take your call, and two, that they don't rake you too hard. I said rake. Rake. Sorry. That was too close to another word. Anyway, so as for the people I recommend you to call, well, this comes down to who do you trust? Who's the person that you can call in this situation? Who is the person in your life, one, that you remember their phone number to? Yeah, challenge of cell phones. But usually if you ask the officer nicely, they can look it up in your phone. But two, who is the person you trust most in the world where you can say, hey, I'm in jail right now. I need you to find me a lawyer because that's the person who can get your bond. And B, I need help. And this is going to test all of your relationships. That may be a mom, that may be a dad, that may be a wife, that may be a husband, that may be a brother, that may be a sister, that may be your best of best friends. I don't know who that is in your life. But if you don't have that right now, you need to find that. Because whenever this situation comes up, and it may not be a jail, like sitting in jail, but life will always have a situation like this. There will always be some challenge where you cannot face it alone. And you need that person you can trust more than anyone else in the world to be there by your side. That's when your relationships matter more than anything else. That's who I would call. And then they're going to need to find you a lawyer. And they need a lawyer who can bond you out of jail. That means they're bonded with whatever jail you're sitting in at the moment, whether it's with the city, whether it's with the county, wherever. So that's what's going to happen next. And then eventually you'll get out. You'll get out on bond. Now, let's talk about public defenders for a brief second. You don't want a public defender. You don't want to fight this from jail, because I'm going to tell you right now, your odds are next to nothing on getting any traction in here. Your public defender will not try and take this to court. They're going to try and get you whatever plea the district attorney gives them. They will try and force you to take it. I had many people I know who worked with who had public defenders. Public defenders are beyond overworked. They have too many clients. And if the district attorney offers them a deal, they will tell their clients to take it just out of hand, because they don't have enough time to work all of their cases. And in general, if the public defender did take every case of theirs to court, or if every case went to court in general, the entire system would grind to a halt because there's too many cases. The system intentionally works long. It works long to actually try and catch things so that the truth will out, basically. However, plea deals are a shortcut, and having the plea deals makes it so that we don't have to deal with all of that. The nice thing about plea deals, it offers a way to not put yourself at such great a risk as a judge or a jury trial can put you in. And I will get to that shortly about what the plea means and what those pleas will look like with the attorneys. But before we go to that, let's talk about your defender. So you're not going to get a public defender. You're not going to be in jail. You're going to be out on bond. And I really hope so, because it's going to be based on money. Your family's picked out an attorney. And what I really need you to think about is, even though your family has picked out this attorney, they may believe in them. They may put all of their stock in them. But what you need to do is you need to look at this attorney like what they actually are, which is one of the biggest purchases you're ever going to make in your lifetime. Attorneys can cost more than your car. They can even cost more than your house, depending on what the charge is and what type of attorney they are. Now, one thing we didn't go into the last episode was on the episode on crime is civil versus criminal law. Civil law is where they go after property and money, versus crime and punishment. And it works very differently than the criminal law. If you haven't picked up now, we're talking all about criminal law. All of this is about crime punishment law as opposed to the money side. Money working in civil law, very different process, very different set of standards. So just FYI on that one. And I don't have much experience personally with civil law, thank goodness, because civil law is much harder to win. Anyway, let's keep moving with the criminal cases. So this lawyer may be one of the most expensive purchases you're ever going to make. And just like you would with a house, with a car, with any one of those super expensive purchases, you are going to do your research. You are going to put them through the ringer, test drive them, make sure that they know their shit, make sure that they are worth every penny. And part of that, a big part of that is, if there's any hesitation in you that you feel like this attorney is not telling you everything, that this attorney does not have your best interest in heart, that there's any part of you that feels like as you work with this attorney that not everything is working out, go with that instinct. You find one that works well with you. You do your research. You can even talk with previous clients, which I highly recommend. You find one that gives you the warm squishies inside. And when that attorney looks you in the eye and says, "This is what's going on," you say, "Yes, that's what's going on." And when that attorney says, "I've done everything you can," you go, "You know what? That attorney has done everything they can." And you know it in your gut. Because here's the thing, it's your life that's on the line right now, not theirs. So you need someone you can trust. It's hard to find a good one. I know there's all sorts of evil attorney jokes out there and everything. There are good attorneys out there. They exist. They will work hard for you, but you need to look for them. Just like I said, there's bad cars, there's good cars. There's cars that'll work for you, there's cars that won't. There are some that will work in your situation, there's others that won't. Same thing with attorneys. you need to do your research. And even if your family thinks that they have the right one for you and you disagree, it's about you. This is be selfish, be totally on you. I am giving you permission right now. Do it. So that's my other big piece of advice when you're fighting something like this. The next thing that you're doing after you've picked out your attorney is so now you're going to have the grand jury. The grand jury is going to, which is probably all going to be behind closed doors. Some states don't even have grand juries. But the grand jury is going to determine whether or not there's enough evidence to take this case to trial, which there probably will in general. Yes. So the grand jury will determine if it's going to go to trial. Then there will be the next big thing will be you'll be brought in front of the judge. You'll find out about the judge. You need to know about this judge. Do your research on the judge too. Once you find out who your judge is, you find out what are they like, what do they dislike, what kind of cases, how do they rule on your type of case, how do they rule on other type of cases, how do they rule on people like you, how do they rule on people that are different than you, what's the vibe on this judge. You might start to find out on this next go round, because the next thing you're going to do is probably go in front of the judge and make your plea. And your plea, I don't care whether you are innocent, whether you are guilty, whether you know exactly what happened, whether you have no idea what happened, whether you are completely prepared, whether you are completely unprepared, whether there is a mountain of evidence working against you, whether you have all the evidence in your favor, no matter what, your answer, your plea will always be not guilty. And here's the reason why. The next phase is the plea phase. In the plea phase, your attorney and the district attorney are going to kind of barter with each other about what they can offer you, and they can come back with a deal. If you go to court, the district attorney is going to go for the biggest sentence possible. In a plea, they can only go for whatever's offered in the plea. Let's go with that 0 to 20 years. In court, they'll go for 0 to 20. Let's say I say not guilty, and then I have the district attorney who can do one of many things. One is that he can offer me a lower sentence. He can also choose to drop my charge down to a lesser charge that has even lower sentences, all in exchange for me saying guilty. And also I sign the plea deal. So I start with not guilty. He says, all right, you say guilty, I'll drop your charge down to a misdemeanor, but you have to take, all of these classes and do 500 hours of community service, and you're going to pay a $2,000 fine. And I can go, yeah, sounds great. Give me the paper. I got it. Now I don't even have a felony charge on there. That's all possible with not guilty. Okay, now I say guilty. Now the district attorney goes, okay, how about I give you 15 years as opposed to 20? And I go, well, what about we drop it to a lower charge? And the district attorney's like, nope, you already plead guilty, so you can't get a lesser charge. So 15? And I'm like, no, I don't like that. Okay, see you in court. That's it. That's how that works if you plead guilty. Because you have no bargaining power. You need to have bargaining power when in the next phase, when you're discussing the plea. So not guilty opens up a whole bunch of options, whereas pleading guilty gives you nothing. And depending on your judge, it may not earn you any favor and may not earn anything. And honestly, everyone in the legal system knows this. It's not like this is a hidden thing. So you saying not guilty, even though you have a stack of evidence against you, okay, like they understand why you said not guilty. Like they understand that can be part of like figuring out what your plea is. And they can understand that also, and you can also say, "Oh, that's what my lawyer said." Fair enough. That's it. You can still, and you can also still do things like going to treatment, working on doing things that show that you are remorseful other than saying guilty at this point in time. There will be other opportunities if you want to say guilty, but I would say don't. Just don't. Because you have to remember that this whole process is not about finding out who actually did it. It's not about providing help for the victim. It's about wins. And for the prosecutor, the bigger the win they get, the more years you get, the better they look. So there you go. So now you've got some time. And unfortunately, this is going to be like a year, maybe 2 years, where you're just going to be sitting around on bond. Not much is probably going to be happening. There might be some updates in your case. You're going to have to decide at some point whether or not you're going to go in front of a judge or go in front of a jury. Once again, this comes in handy, you studying up on your judge. Do you think you stand a better chance in front of your judge or in front of a jury that your lawyer has a hand in selecting? These are decisions you're going to have to make. In general, you're probably going to do better in front of a jury, but stats may change based on the offense. But if you study up on your judge, you might be surprised. Some judges are lenient in certain cases. Some judges are super harsh in certain cases. Both are very good to know, especially if your case is one of the ones that judge is super harsh on. So know these things before you decide whether you're going to do a judge or a jury trial. And to be clear, a judge trial, the judge decides with the guilt or innocence, whereas in a jury trial, the jury decides the guilt or innocence. Either way, the judge is going to decide your sentence in a future trial. So after you've been found guilty, which hopefully you haven't at this point, then you move on to the sentencing hearing. At the sentencing hearing, it'll go through a whole new hearing, new witnesses, new all sorts of stuff. And then there will be a decision about what type of sentence you shall receive. Like I said, the prosecutor's gonna be going for the maximum sentence. Makes them look tough on crime. Also, for the judge, makes them seem like they're tough on crime too. So there's some incentives there. And then the biggest thing is you're going to be working with your lawyer to find out what is going to work best. And it's really it's going to be different for each person. For me, it was about staying present while I was at the trial, but this is one of the hardest things in the world to do. This is one of the most emotional, most stressful things you will ever do in your lifetimes. And it was one of the hardest moments I've ever had in my life, was that sentencing hearing. Once you've been sentenced, then from that courtroom, you're going to be pulled out and go straight to jail. And then from jail, you'll be sitting there for a while, and then they're going to transport you to prison. And that's what the process looks like. So to review, say nothing, which I want to rewind real quick on. When you're sitting in jail and you're calling your people and you're calling that person you trust more than anything in the world, I want to be very clear. Do not tell that person what happened that night, what happened. Do not tell that person what happened. Do not give any information about your guilt or innocence. Do not tell anything that could be used against you in the court, because as the phones will tell you, they're recording and they will use every bit of that as evidence to use against you. So it is very important that you be as vague as possible. You tell them that you're in jail. You tell them that you need help, and you tell them that you need a lawyer. That's it. You cannot tell them anymore. Unfortunately, not while you're sitting in jail. There's nothing you can say to them. It's very important to have someone you trust in your life, because otherwise, this is a very difficult phase. So, number one, do not talk to the police. Do not say anything that incriminating over the phone, including any admissions of guilt. And in general, don't say anything in the cell or anything. Don't say anything, which leads to two, you're not guilty. You do not admit guilt publicly at all. Now you can feel remorse. You can know what you did is wrong. If you want to make amends, there are things like restorative justice that you can work on separately to this process. But as you're working through this adversarial process with the state, you cannot get involved. You cannot admit any sort of guilt. The only way to do that is with restorative justice, which is a whole separate process, and that's going to be done on its own. And that's with permission of the victim if you're going to be doing that. But you cannot admit it during this process. And if you do, it will be used against you. Number 3, treat your lawyer like the most expensive purchase you're ever going to make. And it's expensive. It only gets more expensive. It's hard to not do this without spending a lot of money. Treat it like that. Be stingy, be selfish, be picky. All those are important. It's about you, and trust your gut on that. Trust it. 4, know your judge. You need to know your judge, everything about them. If you can know their likes, dislikes, if you can know what kind of rulings they make before versus after lunch, and you can have some say over that, awesome. All these things are helpful to know. That being said, you are now more prepared than most anyone who ever gets arrested. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully none of your loved ones do. Hopefully you don't need any of this information. But now you have a very clear idea of what happens once you get arrested. And now, hopefully you make some good decisions. And I'm going to go make some good decisions and get some rest and prepare for some of our longer, more fun discussions. See you next week.